Today is Saturday, April 16th, 2016, and you're listening to Comm Chatter Off Duty. I'm Pixley, and with me as always is Alderin. This is where we cover out-of-character Star Citizen news and role-playing topics as they relate to Star Citizen. Today's show will be various minor bits of news, nothing too discussion-worthy. Just, we're going to run through a bunch of new stuff. But the main topic for today is private and legacy type server. The news about the recent situation with World of Warcraft has kind of sparked this interest in me as it pertains to Star Citizen because it could potentially be relevant. So we're going to discuss that later on in the show. So, all that and more after the jump.
I'm sure all two of you are keenly aware, it's been quite a long time since we've uploaded.
Yep.
Just over 6 months, actually. Yeah, we've both been really busy. Our schedules haven't really been lining up. Pixley's been too busy to edit.
Yeah, we've recorded more than a couple episodes in the intervening time, and it's just like, either they just weren't good and we didn't feel like re-recording them, or I got so tied up in stuff that by the time I had enough energy to edit, it was like 3 weeks later, and it just felt weird to put it out at that point.
Yeah, one of them was just so bad you should thank us for not uploading it.
Yeah, not even the magic of editing could help that one.
Yeah, the other two just, by the time we would have gone around to it, everything was old.
Yeah.
Like, we've been uploading, 1 or 2 month old news.
Yeah.
Which we kind of do anyway, but...
Yeah, but it's not like we had... It's not like we had said anything worth sharing at that point, because, we didn't have, super solid discussion topics or anything. Which is different now. We actually have a discussion topic we're actually excited to talk about for once. But anyway, let's run through the news real quick.
Real quick. There is a free fly until April 25th. They are going to be reworking the holotable soon. I know that's not a big deal to some, but the holotable is a mess. The Mist Prospector is going to be a freelancer-like ship, specifically for mining. And it's going to be $140. It's going to go for sale on April 22nd. However, the Orion is probably going to be out before it. Yay.
Yay.
The Banu Merchantman, the Orion Endeavor, Hull Series, 300 Series are going to be worked on later this year.
Please fix the 300 Series cargo situation. Please fix the 300 Series cargo situation. Please fix the 300 Series cargo situation.
I might be tempted to melt one of my ships and get a new 300i. Alright, is there anything else? Or do you want to just get straight to that discussion topic?
Yeah, let's do discussion.
Anyway, 2.4 isn't feature lock, which means they can't add any new stuff to it. They can take stuff away if it doesn't work out. It includes early forms of persistence, and potentially early clothing and armor customization. So you could buy clothes and mix and match them, and same for armor.
Can we color them, do you know?
I don't know. They just mentioned the different, types. You could put, outlaw helmets and light marine shoulders and heavy marine torso or stuff like that.
I just want to be dressed in pick and shield colors, finally. And by colors, I mean everything will basically be teal.
The Idris is, quote-unquote, pretty much done. But CAG isn't sure if they're going to release it before its appearance in Squadron 42.
Well, it depends. When's Squadron 42 coming out?
I mean, they'll definitely be able to release it sooner, but they probably won't want to spoil it.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, even if I had one, which I don't, thankfully, I wouldn't want to
Fucking
see
wish.
my how much I've spent if I had one. Um, Even if I had one, I wouldn't really want to see it until Squadron 42 dropped.
No, see, once it comes out, I would bug Kid Shadow to let me see his.
Um, this isn't new news, but we meant to air it on the last episode. They are working on a new Corvette to replace what the Idris's former role. It's the Polaris Corvette, I believe, by RSI. I have it written down here, but they are working on one.
Yep.
And the Drake Dragonfly, the what is essentially a space motorcycle, is being worked on as well. However, at this time, at least last that we were told, it can't land on planets or use quantum drive, which I think might be a little too restrictive. Anyway, military Hornets in the works, which is different than the Hornets we have now.
Mm-hmm.
And power plants can now be swapped in ships.
Neat.
This day-ish in history is a little different. It's not 1, 2, or even 3 years ago. It's about 3.5. This Tuesday, to the 19th of April, will mark 42 months since the start of the campaign.
Good stuff.
Yeah, 3.5 years, and we're still waiting for Org 2.0 and Star Citizen and everything else.
Yeah, actually, if Orgs 2.0 doesn't happen sometime soon, then the conversation we're about to have will become really, really important. All right, so discussion topic for today is private or legacy servers. So for those of you who are out of the loop or like don't play WoW or never did play WoW, or don't even know what WoW stands for if you're that much under a rock. WoW being World of Warcraft, the most popular MMO ever. Um, so last week, the WoW private server Nostalrius received a cease and desist from Blizzard, and they had to shut down. They did Sunday, so a week ago when this gets put out. Private servers are not allowed under Blizzard's terms of service. They never have been, probably never will be. But the special thing about Nostalrius is that Nostalrius was running vanilla WoW, as people call it. The original version of WoW as it existed before any of the expansions came out. So it was set on patch 1.12.1, which was the last patch before patch 2.0 came out, bringing the changes that were coming with the Burning Crusade expansion. The thing is, a lot of people prefer the way vanilla WoW was to the way WoW is now in the late stages of the Warlords of Draenor expansion. Warlords of Draenor being the 5th expansion. And the 6th expansion is coming out sometime this year. It's currently still in alpha. But there have been a lot of changes from vanilla to current WoW that a lot of people don't like. And I'm not going to go into a lot of this. It's just the game feels more casual now. There's less of a sense of community. People feel like you don't actually have to work to achieve anything anymore. That sort of stuff. But the point is, the game as it exists now is very different from how it existed back then. And I share this opinion. I haven't played WoW in over 2 years at this point. Actually, no, 3 years. It's been 3 years. And I quit because of a lot of those complaints I just listed off. Because the game is very different from how it was when I started in Burning Crusade. But it's still against the terms of service. It got shut down, and a lot of people are really unhappy with Blizzard and are petitioning them, again, including myself, to either host their own legacy servers or have like officially licensed private legacy servers so people can play WoW as it was back then, back when they enjoyed it. The thing with Nostalrius is most of the people, I'm not going to say all of them because that assumption can't be made, but most of the people who played in Nostalrius had legitimately played WoW back then, or at some point. Maybe they didn't play vanilla, but they wanted to see what it was like back then. But it's not like they did it to pirate the game. Like, if Blizzard were to offer this, they would have paid for it. Again, including myself. So that kind of leads into Star Citizen, because as much as CIG wants to kind of brush the moniker away, Star Citizen is an MMO. It's not an MMO RPG, at least not in the traditional sense. It's an MMO space simulator, an FPS, and all the other things that Star Citizen is. But it's an MMO. Last we heard, years and years ago at this point, I don't think they've even talked about it since like the initial crowdfunding campaign, CIG has said that private servers for Star Citizen will be allowed. Now, obviously, it's way too early to do this because, the game's still in active development. Supporting private servers would basically be impossible at this point because so much could change, so much could break, that sort of stuff. What is worth discussing is, does this policy even still apply? I mean, it's been years since the initial crowdfunding campaign. Does CIG still hold this stance? Are they still going to allow private servers? And hopefully they do, because I'd prefer them to not go back on their word in that case, even though I'm not personally particularly interested in them. So if this does still apply, how much support from CIG will server admins have? Like, will they have a robust API meaning application programming interface, basically hooks into the server software to like change stuff to their liking? How much control will they have? What will they be able to do in those private servers? How much support will they get from CIG? How good will the documentation be? That sort of stuff. But also, what limitations will there be? How authentic an experience will these private servers provide? Like, they said way back when, like, oh, well, so private servers won't get information for undiscovered star systems until they're discovered. Or long after, even. Like, so you can't pull up a private server and then cheat to find jump points to undiscovered star systems, which makes sense. But, what other limitations on the server runner will they be? Like, what costs and responsibilities will the server admins bear? Will they have to license, like, the software? Will they have to, like, pay to have that software available to them? Will there be like a recurring license fee, like monthly? You have to pay X amount of money to CIG in order to have the rights to run the server. Will CIG let people host their private servers on their servers, or will people have to find their own hosts to run them on? Like, will they have that kind of support? But the most important thing in the context of how the situation with Nostalrius, will people be able to stick with older versions of the game? Is there... Because, I mean, there's always a risk for CIG to change something way in the future, like after launch, after a couple of expansions or whatever the equivalent for Star Citizen will end up being. And will these things be things that people don't like? And it's not even necessarily limited to environmental changes. It could be mechanical changes. It could be a change in the way that people interact with each other. I mean, the thing that's really killed the community in WoW is that going to dungeons and raids has been automated for you. You don't ever have to go to the to the dungeon.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
the looking for dungeon system, which was introduced in the final content patch of the Wrath of the Lich King. So, early 2010, I think, late 2009 at earliest. They put in the system where it would matchmake you with, tank, 3 DPS, and a healer. It's a purely automated matchmaking system. It draws from multiple servers. It's not just people on your server. Puts you all together and then teleports you to the dungeon. Wherever you are in the world. Which means you can level, right now, from level 15 to level 100 without leaving whatever city you happen to be parked in. Like, if you're Horde, you could level 15 to 100 in Orgrimmar. If you're Alliance, you can level 1 to 15, or 15 to 100 in Stormwind. So, like, you don't go out in the world. That sort of stuff. So, that's what I would be particularly concerned about, because, I feel like the sense of community is really important. I mean, the whole point of Pick and Shield being a role-playing guild is that there is this interaction, not just within the org, I said guild, within the organization, but also with other organizations that either are like willing to play along or do role-playing. Especially orgs like the Birdsong Armada, for instance. If the game does a thing that makes the sense of community less apparent. Now, I don't know how that is, because it's not like anything's instanced. Like, not in the traditional sense in Star Citizen. Like, you don't have, like, oh, you fly over to this system and it's only you and your party, you're in here and you're doing this big PvE boss battle thing. That's not the case. But there could be something out there that lessens that. And I imagine a lot of people over time would quit playing the game because there isn't that sense of community, and that's why I quit WoW, that's why my brother quit WoW, that's why my best friend quit WoW. That's why a lot of people have quit WoW, and that's why it's at its lowest sub count since early 2006. Like, it's lowest in 10 years because of the erosion of the community. So, there is that potential. Now, I hope CIG keeps on top of that and, learns from these sorts of things that WoW has experienced, and makes sure that we don't run into that situation where the community gets eroded because of some mechanical thing that's supposed to, like, improve people's quality of life. Because back when Dungeon Finder came out, it never occurred to anyone that it would potentially kill the community. Like, maybe some people, like, oh, this could do this, but it was a very small minority. Like, a lot of people were really happy with it, myself included, because we didn't realize the damage it would have because it was cross-server. If it weren't cross-server, if it were just people on the same server as you, that would have been fine. That would have worked great, because you'd still be meeting people. But you don't get that anymore. You don't meet people. And if it ever comes up in Star Citizen where you don't have to meet people to do stuff anymore, then it's going to be a real problem. That's when people are going to leave. And that's where these private legacy servers would become important. Because then you could go back to when there was a sense of community. Because there was a sense of community on Nostalrius. Peak nights on Nostalrius would have 13,000 players. In the last few months before the shutdown announcement. During the shutdown, it was like, oh, it spiked because people were on like, oh shit, and it like peaked up to 18,000 at a time. Yeah, 13,000 players at the same time. I would be shocked if any individual WoW server has 13,000 people at peak hours on the weekend. Ever anymore. And Asarius also had 150,000 active accounts, which is huge for an unsanctioned, illegal, even, private server that did really no advertising of its own.
Yeah, I mean, I I haven't even, I didn't even hear of it until this happened.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, and I should have been interested in it. Like, vanilla was the last time I played WoW.
yeah. I mean, you can go on YouTube and see videos of people hanging out in Ironforge or Orgrimmar, and it's packed. There are tons of people there. If you go to those same places, well, you don't go to Ironforge and Modern Warfare because people hang out in Stormwind now. Like, because Stormwind actually took its place as the actual capital of the Alliance. But if you go to Orgrimmar or Stormwind in Modern WoW, you will not see, like, I mean, there will be people there, sure. But it won't be packed. Like, you won't have enough people where your frame rate will drop. That used to be a thing. That was a thing on Nostalrius, and that is no longer the case. But anyway, going back to Star Citizen, like, you could potentially run into this situation, and having these private legacy servers is important, because, you know, someone will want to preserve the game that they loved, just like the Nostalrius folks did. And people will be drawn to that, so if these sorts of changes happen, there needs to be a place people can fall back to so that they're still playing the game. And again, if like there's a recurring licensing fee for the servers, that still ends up being a revenue generating system for CIG. And you know, since it's a version of the game they've moved past, they don't have to. It's not something they have to actively support anymore, so it essentially becomes free money.
I mean, it could even be a reduced amount if it's an unsupported version.
Yeah.
Like, if it's a current version, maybe they could pay more or something so they could get, like, bug fixes, like...
Yeah.
Something. Just some kind of support.
Yeah. But speaking of support, there also needs to be a way in the launcher to support older game clients. Because right now it's a huge pain in the balls to have both an old version and a current version of WoW installed at the same time because of the way Battle.net works, and it like automatically detects installs and stuff.
Yeah, right now the only game I could think of that does a halfway decent job of it is Minecraft.
Yeah, Minecraft does an excellent job of that. Like, you can pick whatever version you want. The thing is, that does have a cost, because Minecraft's a small game. Like, footprint-wise, like, obviously it's a very rich, deep, complex experience with myriads of hours of gameplay. Actually, sorry, a myriad. There's no such thing as multiple myriads. Anyway, but, like, footprint-wise, as in the amount of space it takes up on your computer, Minecraft is really small. Again, because it's procedural. But, you know, Star Citizen is a game that will, like... How much is Star Citizen's install footprint now?
Last I saw, I think it was like 30 gigs.
Really? That seems awfully small.
I can check.
But, anyway, the point being that at launch, Star Citizen will very likely be more than 100 gigs. Like to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if it's 200 gigs.
Okay, so the Cloud Imperium Games folder in program files is 27.2 gigs.
That's actually smaller than I thought it was. But yeah. But the thing is, making these older versions available for download does have a cost server side, because it costs money to store data. Especially, like, and I actually have kind of intimate knowledge of this because their cloud provider is Google Compute, which is the same cloud system that we use for my job, which, again, you could probably figure out who I work for with a minor amount of searching. But point is, like, I know basic things about Google Compute's like storage pricing system, and it gets kind of expensive to store multiple versions of a game, even for a game that's not 20-something gigs, a game that's like zipped up like 4 gigs. So that does have a cost associated with it. So either they need to be willing to bear that cost, or make it so that it's easy for someone to go online and find a torrent of an older version of Star Citizen or something like that, and download it and either let the launcher handle it, or have the launcher ignore it, and then there has to be some way to log in for these private servers. Either I guess they would need some kind of custom launcher at that point, something like that. I don't know.
It might not be too hard. I mean, they have the P2U launcher built into the normal one.
Yeah, but I mean that's just two environments. I mean we're talking a bajillion of them at this point, potentially. But oh, what was I? Where was I going? Oh, right. The thing is, CIG actually has a really good opportunity to make sure things stay legit for them. Like, not have people playing on pirate servers because it's a way to play the game for free, by actively supporting, making it so that you have to log in to your RSI account in order to play on a private server. So where that info is used to log on their servers in addition to the retail version. So that way people still have to pay for the game, even if they're not going to play the current version, they're going to play an older version. And the last kind of rhetorical question I want to ask here is not necessarily related to the old versus new thing, but there the potential. Well, of course, there's a potential. There's always a potential for basically anything, but is it likely that people who want to roleplay could end up congregating on private servers because like there aren't enough people, like there's not a high enough percentage of people on the retail server to play along with them, to humor them, or just enough of them that also roleplay? Like, would it be a small enough community where they could potentially feel alienated and thus want to go to a private server? And then they would be like, oh, if you roleplay, you play on this private server. You don't play live. And I feel like at launch, role players will end up being pretty happy. But if there is kind of an erosion of community, or like the game attracts a crowd it doesn't already have that isn't as roleplay friendly, you could potentially see these role players getting alienated, and that would be really sad, because I feel like even if you don't roleplay, like it ends up being a richer experience for you when you have people who are like enhancing the universe you're in. Which, I mean, MMOs are about being in a world, and I hope CIG remembers that, because Blizzard certainly hasn't. And that's why you sit all day in your garrison dragging icons into circles and then sending people off to go do stuff for 8 hours. And so you never...
me
What's up?
Something that Blizzard said. It's not just that they don't know.
Oh, they do.
What you want. I mean, yeah, they do. They actively ignored it. I remember where I heard it, but apparently Blizzard actually said, like, the players don't know what they want.
Yeah,
Blizzard knows what they want.
The infamous quote was at BlizzCon 2014. A guy asked if they would offer servers that had previous expansions as they were then. Immediate response from J. Allen Brack, who's like one of the lead dudes on Warcraft right now. It's like, no. And you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't. And that last bit, you think you do what you don't, has actually become kind of a rallying cry for nostalgic people and people who sympathize with them, such as myself, where like it's become a hashtag. Like it's this rallying cry, like, no, we know what we want, and it's not what you're currently offering because your game is shit now. Yeah, so I really do hope that CIG does keep this community in mind and never ends up saying something like you think you do but you don't. Like, obviously, like, again, I'm a game dev. I work in the industry. I know how it works. Like, not every idea that the community puts forth is a good one. Now, this isn't speaking to any particular person in my game's community, just in general. Just in general. Not every idea is a good one. Some ideas are bad ideas. But when and usually they're like one-off things, and like maybe some people agree with them. But when you have this entire community that's been alienated from your game, and your subscriber count is falling fast, you gotta listen at that point. Because, like, there's a big united voice. I mean, let's see, the petition, the folks who ran Nostalrius put up a petition, when they got their cease and desist, asking Blizzard if there could be a legacy server. Like, either they host it or they allow other people to host it, and, like, it's some sort of official partnership way. That petition currently has 110,031 supporters as of this recording, like me pulling up this page right now in the recording. That's how many signatures on that petition there are. And it's full of people from all over the world, and, you know, the message is basically uniform from all the comments. Like, we don't like your game anymore because it doesn't have a sense of community. Please let us play the old version that has the game configured in such a way that community naturally occurs. Because let me tell you, from playing in the second half of Cataclysm and the first half of Mists of Pandaria, actually not even the first half, like the first 3 or 4 months, yeah, you have to really try in order to gain any sense of community anymore. Because it's not like you naturally fall into a guild or anything. It's like people in trade shows are like, oh, I have a guild, this is what we do in 255 characters. And then, you know, people are like, I'm looking for a guild. Like, there's no, like, oh, you're a really good tank. You know what, I bet you'd be really good in our guild. We're trying to do Molten Core, or Karazhan, or Nax Ramus in Wrath. Like, you don't do that anymore because you don't meet people. You don't meet people in the natural environment where you would meet people. You used to have to gather up a group of people to go do instances. They would all be from your server. You would know these people, and people had reputations, and you don't have that anymore.
Yeah, even back when I played WoW a little bit, they didn't even have to be your friends a lot of the time. You could just bump into random people when you're out and about and get talking and go do, you know, whatever together.
Yeah.
Even if you don't end up being friends with that person or talking with them all the time, it could just be a random person that you go help out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it used to be oftentimes that you had to work together on quests. Like, you'd have group quests that required multiple people. If one person did it, they would just die. Those don't exist anymore. They took all those out of the game. Like, there are no group quests anymore. Like, you can get from level 1 to level 100 without talking to any human being, without grouping with any human being. It's like, you can do quests. And, you know, and if you do interact with people by doing dungeons, they're not on your server. You are never going to see these people again. Like, before, you would see people, like, you would recognize guilds, you would know who the cool people on your server are. Like, I remember, like, the names of other guilds better from when I played in Burning Crusade than from when I played in Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria. Like, despite the fact that that was like 8 years ago as opposed to 3 to 4 years ago. And I really don't want that sort of thing to happen to Star Citizen because, you have all these different organizations. Like, it would be really sad, like you have Imperium and Test and the Gunrathi and the various other big orgs. Like, if you don't keep coming across those kinds of people and, like, seeing what they're doing, and if you never have to interact with them, then it's like, oh, that guy has that tag, okay. Well, that doesn't say anything to me because I never interact with anybody. Like, the MMOs should be an environment where community interaction just kind of organically happens. And by forcing people to have to group up to do stuff, like, that's what ends up happening. People start talking. Like, dungeon runs become less about, like, oh, we're going to clear this dungeon as fast as possible, as opposed to just having a good time and talking to people. Like, you don't get that anymore. Not even at, like, the raiding scene. Because you don't do pickup group raids anymore. You don't meet people through that anymore because you have Raid Finder. You get matched with 24 other random assholes from all over the world that you're never going to speak to, except for, like, maybe someone will explain the mechanic to people who don't know how it works. But it's not like you actually have to do that because the raids are so dumbed down for Raid Finder. But, like, so you just tolerate the existence of 24 other random assholes for 45 minutes or so, and then you get cool gear out of it. And you don't feel like you've accomplished much of anything because you don't really have to put forth effort. It's just because it's so dumbed down, and you don't have to coordinate with anybody. Like, it's not like you're working together towards a common goal. It's just you all happen to be in the same place doing the same thing at the same time. But you're not working together, you're just working in the same place. And just by sheer coincidence you happen to be doing basically the same thing. And I really hope that ends up being important in Star Citizen. Like, I want it to be where, if pirates attack someone, like, they'll need people to come into their rescue. You can't just fend off NPC stuff on your own. Like, you should need to do stuff together. And fortunately, like, having the various sizes of ships kind of organically promotes that. But at the same time, you may reach a point in the game where everyone has an Idris. Which...
Yeah, I mean, look what happened in Eve. At one point, even battleships weren't too terribly common. And even when they were, you didn't really see much bigger for a while, but now it's like everyone has a Titan.
Yeah.
Like the biggest ships in the game, the biggest, most destructive ones.
Yeah, and it's not even like only the absolute biggest corps have those. Like, a lot of middling corps have those. Like, I've actually been reading up on the big war that's going on right now between Imperium and the Money Badger Coalition.
Yeah, I've not been keeping that good track of it, but
I mean, I like when the first major battle happened. Like, there was a bunch of news, and I read up on it because I thought it was interesting. Because I've said this before, and I'll say it again: Eve is the most fascinating game I will never play. But like,
I've got when we're done here, I've got to show you something. By the way,
okay. But, like, so you have all these people working together, taking on a common focus. Like, it's this one monolithic entity in Imperium. I mean, it's made up of smaller... it's made up of alliances, but, like Imperium was already a cohesive unit. And then you have all these various other factions joining forces, not because they necessarily liked each other, but because they had a common enemy. Now they're working together, and now they're taking Imperium head on. And that's not like a thing people do anymore in WoW. Like, you don't have guilds working together to form pickup groups. Like, in the early stages of my leadership in my guild in WoW, because I inherited a guild during Cataclysm. In the early stages, we had another guild and mine were working together because neither of us really had enough people to do a whole lot of anything. And we had like a common person. Like there was one person who had a alt in our guild and their main was in the other guild. And so like we worked together. We were kind of like our guilds were friendly towards each other. But they ended up leaving our server because the alliance side on our server was dying. Like people were leaving. Like the top rating guilds left because there just weren't enough people to sustain what they were doing. But after that friend guild of ours left, like we didn't have any other guilds like we had any relationships with because we never met people. Like it isn't necessarily like, oh, we're like firm allies, like we are together to the end, but just like, you know, having a relationship with other guilds or Corps in the case of Eve, like they have this relationship. It's a working relationship. Like again, they don't necessarily like each other, but they hate Imperium, and they're just doing this all-out assault on them because Imperium are such dicks, according to the Money Badgers. And I want that sort of stuff in Star Citizen. But again, going back to the Titan thing, like the disparate corps of Money Badger still have Titans. Not everyone should have an Idris, for instance. Like, as much as I would love to have an Idris for pick and shield, like, that would be great. That would be amazing. But I want to have to earn it. I want to have to earn it through being a large enough org that we can sustain having one. Like, that's really important to me. Like, random people, like, individual people should not have Idrises. Unless, you know, they're the people who paid over $1,000 to have one, like Kin Shadow. Which, I don't know who Kin Shadow flies for, if anybody. He might be doing his own thing. But, anyway. But, like, most people should not have Idrises. That should be something that only bigger orgs should have. And Pick and Shield is not a bigger org. It's a very small org.
We couldn't even crew my Retaliator right now.
Yeah. That's how small we are. So, like, I mean, and the thing is, if you hadn't... Like, we really shouldn't even have that Retaliator, even. Like, you bought it with real money, so fine, whatever, but, like, if we were just coming in completely fresh at launch, like, at our size, we should not have a Retaliator. Like, we shouldn't have an Orion, we shouldn't have all these things. Back in the old days of WoW, it used to be okay that you didn't have the latest and greatest gear from, like, Naxxramas, for instance, back in Vanilla WoW, where it was the final raid. It used to be perfectly fine. Like, people used to be like, oh, you know what, I'm not at that level. I could be at that level one day, but I'm fine with not being at that level now, because I need to go through Molten Core, and AQ, and Blackwing Lair, and you do all this stuff first to work up to that point. Because then when you get up to that point, like, oh, I did all this other stuff, I accomplished something. Getting an Idris should be an accomplishment. Getting a Retaliator should be an accomplishment. Getting an Orion should be an accomplishment. Like, bigger ships should be accomplishments.
I'm beginning to regret buying a lot of them. I mean,
that's part of the reason. The major reason being that I don't have a lot of money. But part of the reason that I only have one ship and it's a single person ship is because of that. Like, I want to earn stuff. Like, hell, getting a constellation should be an accomplishment.
Yeah, and they've even said it should take like a good week's work to earn a constellation, at least. They didn't specify if that was in game or like a real time week, but either way, it's a pretty long time
Yeah.
for a game.
Well, but the thing is, like, I would have it to where, like, one person alone could not build up to a constellation all that easily. Like, like if I want to have a constellation, I should be like grouped up with other people in order to like have the sort of income and able to be able to do the sort of stuff that would get me the revenue in order to obtain and then sustain a constellation. Like if you just operate on your own, to me the best you should be able to hope for is like maybe a freelancer. Like a freelancer's a two-seat ship, but like it's like that's like the biggest ship I can think of that like okay, one person should be able to fly this. That's fine. Like if you get up to that point, fine. But going any further than a freelancer, I feel like should be excruciatingly difficult if you don't have multiple people. Like people should be encouraged to work together. And if that sense of community gets eroded, then people aren't going to play anymore. Because either they won't be able to achieve stuff, or achieving stuff will be trivialized, and they'll have single people with Idrises. And that's just ridiculous. I mean, granted, I don't think you can even operate an Idris as just one person, so I don't think we're in any danger of that particular scenario. But like a constellation even, like you can fly a constellation on your own. Can't really do a whole lot, but
Yeah, beyond flying, it's like there's not much you could do. Like
yeah,
the Constellation has a few forward-facing guns. You could use the missiles, but it's not a fighter. It's not that maneuverable.
yeah,
It has turrets for a reason. It has a co-pilot and engineer positions for a reason.
yeah.
It's
So
like the Retaliator Pixley and I were on the other day. He got out to go activate a comm array. I was out in it alone, and there wasn't jack diddly I could do when I got attacked.
yep, that was fun. But yeah, which actually, there we go. A mechanical thing that could potentially spark the whole like community. Like a change that would kill the community in such a way that people would go to the old game is making so that larger ships would be operatable by just one person. That would be Star Citizen's equivalent of Dungeon and Raid Finders, in my opinion. So, now what of course I hope for is that the game like maintains a sense of community, maintains a sense of depth, a sense of accomplishment, and then this won't be necessary. And people won't be like, oh, it was better 3 years ago, back before they did X, Y, and Z. And then we won't even have this problem. But, I mean, there should still be the mechanisms in place in case that happens, or because people want to do specific stuff, because they want to mod, because they want to do all this other stuff. And CIG should be walking this, unlike Blizzard has been. Because, I mean, Blizzard hasn't responded since the Nasari shutdown. Like, they haven't even given us, like, a no, fuck you sort of response. Which, the longer they do that, the more hopeful I get, which is dangerous. I shouldn't be getting hopeful about this. But, you know, at least I would want a no, fuck you sooner than, you know, waiting. Because I don't play WoW anymore. But you know what? They put up a Burning Crusade server, I'd be all over that shit. Because the game was good back then.
Yeah, even I would probably hop on from time to time if they had like an old version up.
Yeah.
And I only played it for like a little over a month.
Yeah. I wouldn't play vanilla just because I played a feral druid, and feral druids were not viable in vanilla. They weren't.
Yeah, I think I had like a human, like mage and a dwarf hunter.
Yeah.
Kind of hopped between them.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Getting a level cap way back when used to be an accomplishment too. You know, obviously there aren't levels in Star Citizen, so that doesn't really apply, but like even that was an accomplishment. Like I remember hitting 70 and being like, I did it! I hit level 70! Finally! Like it took me months to get to level 70. Months real time. I don't remember what my slash played was when I hit level 70. But it took me forever. Partially because I didn't know what I was doing, and until like level 30, it didn't occur to me like, oh, I'm putting points in the feral tree, but I'm not using my feral forms. Because I was a moron and didn't think things through. But like, it was an accomplishment. Hell, getting my bear form as a druid, that used to be an accomplishment. You used to have to do a quest to get your bear form. Now you just get it automatically at level 8. You just get it, like I didn't even notice. Like, I played last night because I wanted, as a fun experiment, I wanted to see how many people from my own server I would see while leveling. Which I got to level 8, and the grand total ended up being like 6 people. Which is more than I expected, actually. But I was playing on like one of the most popular servers in North America. But, like, I hit level 8 and was going around doing stuff, and then I noticed on my ability bar, like, oh, I have bear form now. When did that happen? Like, I didn't even notice. Like, I got, like, what? Like, I received the ability that basically defines Druid as a class. You can shapeshift, and, like, I got the one that I personally used the entire time I played WoW, basically. Because that's what I did. I was a bear druid. I tanked as a bear druid. Like, I got that ability, and I didn't even notice. Star Citizen needs to maintain a sense of community and a sense of accomplishment, or else this conversation will become really, really important. Alright. I'm done. Let's wrap this up. We'd like to thank everyone who's made this show possible. Senate, of course, for inspiring us. CIG, of course, for making the game.
And hopefully releasing it eventually.
Yeah. Someday. And then, of course, all the guests we've had on this far who have enhanced our show, because our guest shows have been better than our non-guest shows. And then all of you for listening. All 3 of you. If you would like to contact us, either to give feedback on the show, or suggest a topic, or offer to be a guest host on the show, you can do that by going to our feedback form on commchatter.net. There's a contact us section. You can fill out the form, put in your email. That'll go to us, and we'll get back to you. Please suggest topics. This is the first good discussion topic we've had in like a year and a half. So, if we get more of these, that would be great. But yeah. So, that's this episode of Comm Chatter Off Duty. This is Pixley and Alderin signing off.